In the annals of the Old West, few figures captivate the imagination as much as William H. Bonney, better known as Billy the Kid. His life, shrouded in legend and myth, was one of hardship, violence, and tragic circumstances. In this video, we will delve into the tragic real-life story of Billy the Kid, separating fact from fiction and exploring the events that shaped the young outlaw's tumultuous existence.
Yet what truly leaves an indelible mark on Billy the Kid's life is its profound melancholy. From his birth in New York City to being orphaned at a young age, to the fact that the opportunity for a different, happy, and successful life kept getting snatched away from him. The real Billy the Kid shatters the larger-than-life myth. He emerges as a young man persistently thwarted by misfortune. Scant information exists in historical records about the early years of the outlaw. As chronicled in Billy the Kid, A Short and Violent Life, Catherine, his mother, hailed from Ireland and settled in the heart of New York City. His birth date presents a puzzle, potentially falling on either September 17th or November 23rd, 1859, or maybe neither of those dates. No one knows for sure. His familial circumstances remain shrouded in mystery as well, leaving uncertainty regarding his parents' marital status and the presence or survival of his father. Billy probably spent the first 6 years of his life in the Irish slums of Manhattan or Brooklyn. Life in these neighborhoods was a harrowing affair. Historical records, such as the Irish Times, recount a staggering population of nearly 280,000 people per square mile during Billy's upbringing. Restricted to the most abysmal tenements, the Irish inhabitants inhabited cramped spaces where a 12 by 12 foot room could accommodate as many as 18 individuals. The abysmal living conditions, exacerbated by a lack of proper ventilation and the pervasive stench of human and animal waste, yielded an environment that was not only unbearable in odor, but alarmingly unsanitary. Billy's survival under such dire circumstances could be deemed a stroke of fortune. Plagued by rampant diseases, the slums exhibited a distressing mortality rate of 25% among Irish children. To have reached the age of 21 seemed almost miraculous given his origin. While his later life would come to be defined by the violence of the Wild West, his early years bore witness to the brutality of the ghetto. Fueled by frustration at their predicament and seeking solace in alcohol, the denizens of these enclaves engaged in incessant conflicts. Following the cessation of the Civil War, Billy's departure from the slums materialized. Around 1865, his mother made a move to Indianapolis. The specifics of her exit from New York and her motivations for heading to Indiana remain veiled in obscurity. According to Billy the Kid, A Short and Violent Life, it is confirmed that by this juncture his mother was indeed single. While she portrayed herself as a widow, to those compiling the city directory, the duration of her widowhood remains a mystery. This meant she was free to find herself a boy toy younger named William Antrim, though their marriage would not materialize until nearly 10 years later. By 1870, the entire family unit relocated to Wichita, Kansas. There, Billy's life really turned around. Memories from subsequent years depict him as an innocent street urchin. Catherine, his mother, established her own enterprise downtown, the City Laundry, an establishment that garnered favorable mention in the local newspaper. It must have been quite successful because she was able to purchase land outside the town for her family to live on. William Antrim erected a cabin alongside the storm cellar, with likely assistance of Billy and his younger sibling Joe. Together they undertook the digging of the well and the cultivation of fruit-bearing trees. These endeavors painted a picture of stability, that Billy would grow up living happy, a happy, secure life surrounded by family. If nothing had changed, there never would have been a Billy the Kid. However, in the year 1871, an unexpected turn of events unfolded. Catherine took a decisive step by selling her residence and business, embarking on a journey to the New Mexico Territory. During this time, she had been diagnosed with tuberculosis. As illuminated in The Remedy, Robert Koch, Arthur Conan Doyle, and The Quest to Cure Tuberculosis, tuberculosis distinguished itself by its status as an endemic ailment. Although tuberculosis was not a novel affliction, its prevalence surged in the 1800s, becoming the leading cause of death in the United States. In the midst of this turmoil, Billy bore witness to the harrowing suffering of his mother. Catherine's condition unleashed a torrent of distress, marked by incessant coughing, the disquieting expulsion of blood, and a disconcerting crackling sound accompanying each labored breath. Moving to New Mexico meant Catherine was following the standard medical advice, which said drier climates could cure you. The real cause of TB wasn't discovered until 1882. When Catherine was ill, people thought it might be an inherited disease, and they didn't worry about infecting other people. Billy's proximity to his mother during this period was considerably closer than regulations would permit just a few years later. At the tender age of 14, tragedy struck as Billy's mother passed away. William, who had recently assumed the role of stepfather, displayed no interest in raising the two young boys. According to historical data, he arranged separate foster homes for the brothers before hastily departing from their lives. At this point, it seems Billy was still a good law-abiding kid. He found honest work at a hotel where he washed dishes and waited tables. The manager was impressed by the young boy, boasting that he was the only kid who ever worked for him that didn't steal anything. His school teachers thought that the young orphan was no more of a problem than any other boy, always quite willing to help with chores around the schoolhouse. But something changed. As documented by HistoryNet, Billy's initial transgression involved pilfering food. 10 days later, on September 23rd, 1875, McCarty was arrested for hiding a bundle of stolen clothes for a man playing a prank on a Chinese laundryman. According to Billy the Kid, A Short and Violent Life, the sheriff didn't want to do anything more than to scare the boy straight when he put Billy in the cells for a couple of days. Unexpectedly, Billy viewed the situation with utmost gravity. Seizing an opportunity, he orchestrated an audacious escape by worming his way up the jailhouse chimney. From that point onward, McCarty would be a fugitive. 2 years after escaping jail, Billy was working at an army post with Frank Windy Cahill, took pleasure in bullying young Billy. Finally, the insults went too far. On August 17, 1877, Cahill called Billy a pimp. Billy retorted Cahill was a son of a bitch. The blacksmith jumped Billy, threw the teenager to the ground, and pinned him. Panicking, Billy pulled out his gun and shot Cahill, who died the next day. Once again, McCarty was in custody, this time in the camp's guardhouse, awaiting the arrival of the local marshal. Before the local marshal could arrive, however, Billy escaped. Billy joined various gangs and made most of his money through cattle rustling. Yet a pivotal moment arrived when he stole some horses and was thrown in jail again. As recounted in About Billy the Kid, an Englishman named John Tunstall, the rightful owner of the stolen horses, paid a visit to Billy within the confines of his cell. The details of their conversation remain veiled, but the outcome was unmistakable. Tunstall withdrew the charges and gave Billy a job. This gesture became the familial bond Billy had long yearned for. The kid, who has been a misfit since his mother's demise, finally discovered his sense of belonging. Tunstall assumed a role akin to a father figure in Billy's life, potentially the closest approximation to paternal guidance he had ever experienced. But Tunstall was involved in a dangerously escalating feud over control of business territory. Tragedy struck on February 18, 1878, when a posse ruthlessly gunned down Tunstall before Billy's eyes. This heart-wrenching event unfolded in cold blood, forever altering the course of Billy's narrative. Compounding the anguish, they took the Winchester rifle Tunstall had given Billy and held him hostage, causing him to miss his father figure's funeral. The story of the kid swearing revenge over his employer's grave is a myth, but Billy became enmeshed in a vendetta that became known as the Lincoln County War. Over the next 5 months, both sides would participate in various shootouts and revenge killings. Billy's reputation for body count is somewhat inflated, though he undoubtedly claimed the lives of several individuals, including a sheriff. Historical accounts reveal that by the conflict's culmination, a war that his faction ultimately lost, but Billy was known as one of the best gunmen in the West. Billy did not possess an inherent proclivity for a life of outlawing. History reports that he was a decent young man, but it almost seemed that over and over again he was dragged into a life of crime by circumstances beyond his control. Contemporary accounts by his friends bear this out, with one remarking Billy was as gentlemanly as college-bred youth and had a humorous and pleasing personality. Proficient in Spanish, he was a natural leader. In particular, Billy didn't drink. Hence, it follows logically that when presented with an opportunity to embrace rectitude, Billy readily seized it. In the year 1879, New Mexico Territory's governor, Lew Wallace, received intelligence that Billy was amenable to surrendering and providing testimony against fellow outlaws, contingent upon the expunging of charges against him. In March of 1879, Wallace and Billy met to discuss the possibility of a deal. True to form, McCarty greeted the governor with a revolver in one hand and a Winchester rifle in the other. After several days to think the issue over, Billy agreed to testify in return for amnesty. Billy's evidence was enough to convict at least one major bad guy, but the district lawman refused to follow Wallace's orders that he be released afterward. However, Billy was a skilled escape artist and slipped out of his handcuffs and fled, devoid of any clemency or reprieve for the transgressions. Billy should have been a free man at that point, but instead, with outstanding warrants, he had little choice but to return to a life of crime. Billy had formed a gang, referred to as Billy the Kid's Gang, who survived by stealing and rustling. The core members of the gang were Tom O'Folliard, Charlie Bowder, Tom Pickett, Billy the Kid, Dirty Dave Rudabaugh, and Billy Wilson. By the fall of 1880, Billy was still trying to convince the governor of a pardon, although continuing his outlaw activities. He established a year-long residence at near Fort Sumner, a period marked by a fortuitous association with a local bartender named Pat Garrett. According to HistoryNet, speculation even suggests Garrett might have actively participated in certain cattle raids alongside Billy and his gang. The complexities of the Wild West often blurred the lines between a good guy and who was a bad guy, so it wasn't that shocking when possible cattle rustler Garrett was elected Lincoln County Sheriff on November 2, 1880, after running on a law. On December 15, 1880, Governor Wallace put a $500 reward on Billy's head, and Pat Garrett began a relentless pursuit of the outlaw. Garrett set up many traps and ambushes to apprehend Billy, but the kid seemed to have an animal instinct that warned him of danger, but that was not to last. Billy the Kid was captured on December 23, 1880. Remarkably unperturbed, Billy exhibited a composed demeanor, telling a reporter from his jail cell, "What's the use of looking on the gloomy side of everything? The laugh's on me this time." Deliberation in his April trial took precisely 1 day, and Billy was convicted of murdering Sheriff William Brady and sentenced to hang by Judge Warren Bristol. His execution was scheduled for May 13th, and he was sent to Lincoln to await his date. He was under guard by James Bell and Robert Ollinger on the top floor of the building formerly known as the House, before and during the Lincoln County War. Somehow, Billy got his hands on a gun. Historians have no solid proof, but it's thought either one of his old gang members had a pistol hidden in the toilet, or he took it off Bell himself. The kid took out Bell first, then grabbed a shotgun and waited at a window for Ollinger, who ran toward the courthouse when he heard the shots. Billy called out, "Hello, Bob," and blasted him. This would be, however, Billy's last escape. The next time, Garrett wouldn't take Billy the Kid alive. On the night of July 14, 1881, the sheriff and his posse went to rancher Peter Maxwell's house to ask if he knew where the kid was. Maxwell was indeed privy to the information, as Billy was en route bearing beef for an impending meal. In Maxwell's darkened bedroom, Billy unexpectedly entered the room. Sensing someone else was in the room but unable to see his old acquaintance turned adversary, Billy pulled his gun and shouted, "Who's that?" in Spanish. In a tragic twist, to which Garrett responded with 2 shots from his revolver, the first striking Billy's heart. Billy's journey concluded at the tender age of 21. In his short life, Billy the Kid was reputed to have killed 21 men, 1 for each year of his life. However, many historians calculate the figure closer to 10. However, a faction of individuals staunchly contested Billy's demise, asserting their own identity as the outlaw in question. Among them, one figure named Brushy Bill emerged as a potentially credible contender. Living in Texas in the 1940s, he managed to convince the locals, some of the kid's contemporaries, and a lawman that he was in fact the supposedly dead outlaw. Brushy Bill pursued a pardon from the governor of New Mexico, but the governor was not convinced. He stuck to the story until he died in 1950. Whatever the truth, perhaps Billy the Kid can finally rest in peace.
Please like and share if you find the video content interesting and useful. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment below so as not to miss the upcoming interesting videos. Thanks for watching.